I listened to Reverend Bonnie's statement about the real world. I have a little bit disagreement there. I don't know how real the world is out there. It's all an illusion to me. I'm just going to get into it. If you would look behind me, you will see what we used to call, in the other part of the vineyard, Easter lilies. There are cow lilies that we usually see that show up at funerals. But the Easter lily is a lily that celebrates life. In fact, flowers celebrate life. Flowers remind us that there is a God consciousness that surrounds us, that is within us, and that it flowers. But here's the thing. It is not just about a resurrection in the other part of the vineyard. Resurrection Sunday is really about us remembering our own resurrection. Say amen. Amen. Thank you. Because throughout the year, most of us forget to be resurrected. Most of us get hung up, caught up in the circumstances of living. I think we call it drudgery. And we forget to resurrect ourselves. One of the things I like about the Science of Mind text and the Bible together, yes, I'm still a Bible reader, don't throw stones, is that the Science of Mind text has many intersections with the Bible. And one of those intersections really lends itself to religious science. Because the intersection happens at this particular verse. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now that's what the Bible says about what we do. It didn't say, be ye transformed by eating wheat, barley, and something else in the morning. It doesn't say, be ye transformed by going at least to the gym 3 times a week. It doesn't say, be ye transformed by how much money and friends you accumulate. It says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's the last thing we renew. Dr. Holmes teaches that through the Science of Mind text, God as Spirit is conscious life. He further writes that this is the meaning of the teaching of I am. Conscious I am consciousness is to live life intentionally and in the present moment. Conscious I amness, don't know if that's a word, but I'm using it today, is to resurrect to an intentional life. Resurrection is also what Dr. Holmes called the first great discovery. He alludes to this when he writes that when humankind discovered that it could think, and I thought about the movie Space Odyssey, and at the very beginning of Space Odyssey, you see this chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee picks up a stick and begins to use that stick. And in the chimpanzee's mind, the chimpanzee was coming into his I amness. He had discovered a tool, could have been a she, but there was a tool. It was new, it was present. And it is the same kind of thing that Dr. Holmes talks about. because he says that this was the day when humankind said, I am. This was the day when humankind began to work in conscious union with life. Now, I don't want us to get confused here, because I want you to see life as God and or source. So let me attempt to amplify this month's theme, I am conscious. My I am conscious forms my universe. I also want to expand on our understanding of the theme by calling your attention to the background issues of this theme. My message title is Resurrection is Conscious, I Am Consciousness, as a first condition of experiencing the I Am consciousness. I maintain that the I Am consciousness must be intentional and a conscious act. When we affirm that I amness, we are elevating ourselves from a higher consciousness, as we were reminded by Reverend Bram Watkins. Reverend Bonnie alluded to this condition when she taught us how to get through the rapids should you find yourself pitched out of your boat and into the water. My interpretation of this illustration is the following: that when thrown out of the boat, you must be present, because there are things that you can do to assure your safety. But put your body in a position where your feet are forward so that they can encounter the rocks or other obstacles, reducing harm, was instructed by Reverend Bonnie. Secondly, she said to us, keep your head above water. And that was my amen line. I didn't say it out loud, but because every day I have to say to myself, keep my head above water. I'm quite sure I'm not by myself in that. I walked out of CSL thinking that sometimes you will encounter rapids in your life. When things are not going smoothly, when this occurs, stay present and stay conscious. Focus on what you're encountering. Place yourself in a position to reduce harm. There are things in your thinking that you can do to address or contend with the current or temporary circumstance. Keeping your head above water is realizing the truth, which is akin to keeping your head above figurative water and not getting lost in the circumstance. Now I'm going to go off script here. Because one of the things that we do in religious science is we rush to the goal, thinking that that's what we're supposed to do, rush to the goal. Well, in religious science, we do not deny reality. If you hurt, you hurt. You don't deny that you hurt. You say, I am hurt, but I see myself as a perfect and whole being, and that is my ultimate truth. But we've gotten into this gamesmanship where, well, if we just have the goal in mind, I don't have to worry about my broken leg. Really? Or if we have the goal in mind, I don't have to worry about the broken relationship. I just keep the goal in mind. Well, what Reverend Watkins taught us last Sunday is that you have to deal with the whole experience. You have to deal with your current circumstances and transition from your current circumstances to the goal. And I think too many times I think I've used this word before here. Religious scientists get into this disease called happyology. Oh, I'm happy today. Oh, yes, everything is fine and wonderful. when it smells like cow dung. Getting to our perfect whole selves is a gradual process. It's not this instantaneous thing. In fact, Ernest Holmes says that in the Science of Mind text. He says, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. That it takes time to extend his word, that it takes a process. But then Reverend Bonnie said something else that I really had to chew on because it hit my core. She gave us a prerequisite to consciously deal with your current circumstances when she taught us that involution precedes evolution. And what she said further about that is that, and I love this word because I had this visual. She used the word entanglement, that you have to be entangled. You know, and I saw myself in a ball of yarn and couldn't get out. But she's absolutely right, that our minds have to first be entangled, and we stay into that entanglement until it becomes our reality. And that's a gradual process. That's not something that happens like instant coffee. Pour water in, stir, you could drink the coffee. Doesn't work like that. And some of us have another disease. This disease is called impatience. In order to be a practicing religious scientist, in order to be what I would call an effective religious scientist, patience is required. In some other aspects of your life, patience is required. You're in a relationship with another human being, patience is required. You have teenagers in your household, real patience is required. You have animals who act like animals even when you don't want them to act like animals, patience is required. A cat's going to be a cat and a dog's going to be a dog no matter how much training you send them to. They're going to still come out as a cat and they're still going to come out as a dog. And they're going to make what you call mistakes. But they're just living their lives. So in this evolution and involution, we should become entangled or have what I call an intimate encounter with truth. But we run away from truth. And if we are to really deal with the issue of resurrecting ourselves, we must resurrect ourselves to the truth. As the judge says, or the person or the bailiff, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Truth is a scary place to be if you're not accustomed to it. Now, notice I'm not saying the truth. Let me be very clear about that. I'm talking about you telling you your truth. Your truth is not like anyone else's truth. You don't have to deal with the truth of everybody in here. There's only one truth you have to deal with, is your truth. Many of you know that I'm a counseling psychologist. And I'm not going to use psychological terms, but the thing that I focus on is getting people to get comfortable with their truth. Because there is no therapy if you can't sit with yourself. And so in many first sessions, I ask people, even though they may have sent me this 10-page email about why they need counseling, I ask them, what brings you here? I don't ask them, why do you need counseling? I don't do that. What brings you here? Just the other day, I had a person, she talked about her circumstance, and she talked about her partner. She never talked about herself. She never talked about her feelings. And there's a problem there, because she was externalizing all the factors in her life. What was not happening, here comes the truth. What was not happening was she was not taking responsibility for the decisions that she made that placed her in the circumstances she found herself in. Now that's larger than a tablespoon. That's probably 3 tablespoons of castor oil. Anybody remember castor oil? It's terrible, but it's good for you. And so you don't give a person 3 tablespoons of castor oil. What you do is gradually begin to give that medication to them by repeating yourself. So what brings you here? Finally, after about 45 minutes, she finally said what brought her to counseling. We call that progress. And it's big progress, because what we got her to do was to stop externalizing and begin to really look at self and what was the interplay between self and her world. So as a counseling psychologist, I got to tell you, I'm always looking for a process. So in order to move from a lower vibration to a higher vibration, I always ask myself, what's the process to do that? Religious science gives us a process to move from the higher vibration, from the lower vibration to the higher vibration. But I remember my struggles as a traditional Christian. And Reverend Bonnie, they would say all of these declarative statements like, you must be born again. Well, how in the heck do you do that? What's the process? And so I told myself that I would never in my career make declarative statements without giving people a process or negotiating a process. Because I got to tell you, most adult human beings come with their own solutions. Don't ever think, if you're in a therapeutic relationship, that you are God Almighty bringing salvation to your clients. It doesn't work that way. What you do is listen, and listen some more after you finish listening. And then after you finish listening some more, you listen some more. You really hear what your client is saying. You don't interpret to the point of, the client didn't say that. And then you say back to the client the solution that they said to you. And it's real easy, because you simply say, what I hear you saying, is that what you said? Yes. Well, that sounds like something that might work for you. Will it? Most of the time they'll say, I don't know. So you say, well, tell you what, try it one time, it doesn't work, forget it. And they try it one time, it works. I said, well, could you try it 2 times this week? Remember, it's a gradual process. So I offer you the following process that develops your I am consciousness, informing your universe. And I'll highlight it by saying this, that I'm not going to call it a first step, but a step in this process is not denying your current circumstances. Reverend Bonnie taught us that when you're in the water, you're wet. Don't deny that you're wet. When you're in the rapids of either the Colorado River or the rapids of your life, you have to assume a position of protection, a position of safety. Don't deny that you have to do that. you will hit your head on the rock, and it's worse than hitting your feet. Secondly, elevate to your higher vibration by not denying your current circumstance. And then, as a final step, I would offer to you that you begin to proclaim consciously your I amness. But I'm going to go to somewhere else before I get into this process. I'm going to go to a story most of us in this room are familiar with. This is the story. Mary and Martha, Jewish women, are coming to the tomb to prepare the body of Jesus for final interment. There's a rock in front of the cave. The rock is rolled away. Mary and Martha go into the tomb. And then an angel appears and asks this question that I'll ask you a little later. The question is, why do you seek the living amongst the dead? And before I ask you this question, I want you to understand something. That God is in the moment. And God moves from moment to moment to moment. That's why we say you find God, you find source in the present. Yes, God has some history, but that's history. That's not where God is. God is in this moment to moment to moment. And in order for you to be with God, that's another declaration, be with God, okay. You have to move moment to moment to moment with God. So the question is, why do you seek the living amongst the dead? Well, what are you talking about, RJ? Well, what I'm talking about is why dead things are like fear. You're holding on to it, but you keep telling yourself, this is what I really want. We call that psychotic. The other thing is the dead thing of who we think we are. We're not good enough, we're not fast enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not light enough, we're not smart enough. All of those things are dead things. And so I deal with college students who say some of those things, but they're still pursuing their living dream. Those of us who are out here in the world are holding on to dead things, looking for life. Yesterday I attended probably one of the best meetings I've ever attended in my life because there was spirit, and it was a positive spirit, and everybody in the room was conscious. Everybody in the room was with each other. And it was the worship team, or the celebration team, I get confused, for this center. Now, I got to tell you something. I've been associated with this center for 7 years. I've never attended a celebration meeting, a team meeting, where we were intentional and we talked about what do we want to do in the positive. Who's that, God? Okay. To talk about how do we embolden the center? How do we create positive energy? Well, we did it yesterday. We first created it in ourselves. We didn't deny our past or our current circumstances. In fact, we freely talked about that because part of not denying what's presently happening with you is healing. If you want to move on, you got to heal first. Reverend Watkins taught us, and we've heard it many times, that what you resist persists. And if you are resisting in something in your life and it won't go away, I have the magic cure. Stop resisting it. Feel fully what you need to feel. And then move on. Sometimes I get a client who has anger issues. And they come in and they say, well, Doc, I want you to help me get rid of my anger. And so I tell them, you're at the wrong psychologist. I don't help people get rid of their anger. What I help people to do is manage their emotions and show them a method to which they can manage their emotions. I'll put it to you this way. God gave us anger for a reason. Sometimes we need to be mad. You know, not to be mad in certain circumstances, like, really? That didn't affect you? But sometimes we use emotions in inappropriate ways. And so those situations, those set of circumstances, anger needs to be managed. Fear needs to be managed. Doubt needs to be managed. And so I teach management skills, not eradication skills, not how to erase a part of your personality so that you turn into God knows what. So here is this process. Reverend Watkins taught us to fully experience your thoughts. He reminded us that what we resist persists. He further taught us to use the big I am in terms of what you're thinking. Because he also talked about the little I am, thinking about wanted things and unwanted things. We use a word in psychology called perseverate. It's not a real nice term. It means somebody who can't get over something, and so they perseverate. They think about it over and over and over again until they burn out their brain. It's not a healthy habit to have. Reverend Watkins it speaks to this by saying that our present state must be something that we deal with. That if we don't deal with it, then we're dealing with a dead thing. And that on this Sunday, as on all Sundays, as on all days of the week, our focus should be resurrection. The second step is a process that I call rise to your higher vibration. After you've dealt with your issue, and by the way, facts are temporary. Everybody know that? They're temporary. They might look like they're going to last forever, but they're actually temporary. So after you've dealt with that temporary fact, after you've said, okay, I'm washed, I'm clean, it's gone, rise to your higher vibration. Now, I have a silly step for you to do that. And some of you are going to say, oh, that's too silly. I just couldn't do that. In order to really help you rise, one of the things I've looked at is physiological stuff that we do that actually helps us. And one of those physiological things that we do is smile. Smiling actually changes the endorphins and the hormones in the body. The other thing is to affirm yourself in a positive way, like saying you love you. There's nothing wrong with that. So my prescription for you would be to go into the bathroom, shut the door, and lock it. Don't want anybody walking in on you in this. Smile in the mirror and tell yourself you love you until you become comfortable with saying that and smiling. Now, the other thing I got to tell you about Ernest Holmes is he said, you know, there's no way to just do this. Do it in 2 weeks and it's all be fine. No, he says, do it until it becomes your reality. Smile and tell yourself in your locked bathroom that you love you until you walk out of there and say, I really do love me. That's my first step for how to implement raising your vibration. The other part is that you let go of things that keep you in the land of what I call the unwanted. And here's what the land of the unwanted looks like. It has barbed wire, dead trees, stinky swamps. It's unwanted. And here you are walking around in the land of the unwanted because you cannot let go. I had an experience like that just the other week. I consider myself a pretty good teacher at the university. And I have this method where you should read the chapter in order for us to have a discussion. Make sense? But my students don't think they should read the chapter unless I put a condition on reading that chapter. I give a chapter test. Now, they read it for their grade, not for understanding, not for advancing knowledge, not for making them a better social worker in the world, none of that. But I realized something, even in that process, that maybe, just maybe, I need to be a little more flexible. And so we had a discussion about it, because for me it was this big secret in this conversation that I was having by myself, calling these students lazy and saying, you know, I don't know how they're going to get their degrees, or if they go out and get their degrees, how they're going to harm somebody. What is it? Is it true? Is it kind of needed? It wasn't true. It wasn't kind, and it certainly wasn't needed. And so I took what I saw as a problem to the students. And I discovered something, that they had lives outside of the classroom, that they were dealing with the ups and downs of living. And so we made an agreement about how to schedule out things, about how we were going to deal with testing, you know, why it was important for them to demonstrate to their professor that they understood the information. We made an agreement. Now I have students reading their chapters. It's important for some of us to be flexible. You know, we get into these old habits. I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you. There was this woman who liked to make beef brisket. And so what she would do is cut off the ends of the beef brisket. Put it in the pan, put it in the oven. So her daughter grew up and got this cutlery set and this gorgeous cooking stuff, but she repeated what her mother did. When she made brisket, she would cut both ends of it, not really understanding. So one day, she and her mother having some orange juice on the patio. And she says, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off the brisket before you make it?" She said, "The pan wasn't big enough." Our power of observation can sometimes trick us. Dr. Holmes relies on the mind's inability to differentiate how it is experiencing the content of thinking when he writes, "Act as though I am, and it will be." The mind can't tell the difference. Now you can. You're more than the mind. The mind can't tell the difference between did I dream it or I'm experiencing it now. I mean, that's been proven by science. All the mind does is experience. And so you say I am until it is. And the mind will receive that eventually and say back to you, I am. Dr. Holmes reminds us that the I am is what Moses referred to when he taught that I am is the first principle of life, as well as the law of cause and effect running through everything. That's one law you can't get away from. You wake up in the morning, there's cause and effect. You go have coffee, there's cause and effect. You go to your job, there's cause and effect. Can't get away from that one. So the takeaway is move from your lower to your higher vibration through fully experiencing your reality, letting go and allowing, knowing your essence is in common with a universal source. And the question for you to answer this week is, what do you need to let go? When I was attending CSL Las Vegas, there is actually a center in Las Vegas. It's not in the casino. There was a chant that we did after every message. And the chant was, I am letting go of the things that no longer serve me. As I'm letting go, I am blessed. I am made whole. I was in some very trying circumstances when I was in Vegas because I didn't know whether or not, Reverend Bonnie, I wanted to finish this PhD. I was pissed off. But I would faithfully attend church every Sunday. And it wasn't so much for the message, but it was for the chant. Because the chant was, for me, what do I need to let go? I need to let go of my anger. I need to let go of blaming people for stuff that I was doing. I needed to let go. When you let go, things change when you just let go. Let go of your way of doing things. It might have worked for you, but it doesn't work for everybody. Let go of the clock sometimes. We don't spend enough time relaxing or appreciating ourselves as partnered people, as people who have families, as people who have friends. Letting go reduces cortisol in the human body, called the stress hormone. Letting go means that you come into the present moment fully. And so the big takeaway for me for that is simply to let go. Finally, to become entangled with the I am consciousness, therein lies the universe. Entanglement jettisons you toward a higher vibration. Dr. Holmes writes that there is one infinite spirit, and every time we say I am, we proclaim it. But my question to you is, what are you proclaiming that is showing up in your life? Let me ask that again. What are you proclaiming? I'm moving, Randy. That's showing up in your life. And here's what I'm going to say to you. You don't have to guess about this. You don't have to think about it. Look at your life. What's showing up? Is that what you want? No? Change it. And you can change it. Yes, it's gradual, but you can change it. I think St. Paul was the only one who had an instantaneous conversion. I don't know of either St. Paulines or St. Pauls who've had this instant conversion. But this last step of entanglement, this last step of proclaiming, what I'm saying to you is become conscious of what you're proclaiming. Because, you know, some of us not only walk in the land of the unwanted, we also walk in the land of the unconscious. We look like we're living, We look like we're paying attention, but we're actually unconscious. The way I describe it is that there's this tape recorder. Some of you may be too young to remember what a tape recorder was, but it has tape. It goes from reel to reel. Now they have CDs, DVDs. But anyhow, I like tape recorder better. So there's this tape recorder in the back of your head, and it's on a loop. What was those called? 8-tracks? 8-tracks were tape loops. And so this loop just goes round and round and round, and it just plays whatever is on that loop until we become conscious that there's a loop running in my head. And as soon as you become conscious of that, you are then inspired to do something about it, to cut the tape, to stop the loop from going round and round and round. And so I say to you this Resurrection Sunday, that when you are conscious of your I am consciousness, you are consciously forming your universe. Our issue is to wake people up. The Buddha said, wake up. And what the Buddha meant by that was for us to become aware, for us to become intentional about the kind of lives that we were living, emotional lives as well as figurative lives. So, happy Resurrection Sunday. Somebody used the word Easter here. I'm not comfortable with that. But happy Resurrection Sunday, and may Monday be your real resurrection. Namaste.